Good day, learners. How are you? Previously, we understood that there is communication through poems, raps, gestions, and speech choirs. But hereon, let's went all out to the other forms of literature. First, let's have a glimpse of life changes, life challenges to be exact, through vignette. In this lesson, let's get to know what is a vignette. But before we define and explore the features of vignette, let's have the questions first. Have you met a person or witnessed a scene which has made a strong impact on you and inspired you to write? Have you experienced writing about that memorable person or meaningful scene? If your answer is yes to the questions, that's good to know. And actually, one form of writing that has this purpose is vignette. So do you have now an idea what is a vignette? Well, a vignette is a short, well-written sketch of a person or descriptive scene. When we say a sketch, it is a short piece of writing, shorter than a short story, that contains little or no plot. Now with that, a vignette does not have a plot, which would make it a story. But it does have something about the elements in it, like the character, mood, or tone. It may have a theme or idea of its own that it wants to convey. Basically, its essence is the description of the scene or the character. Now the word vignette, notably, the word vignette comes from the French word vigne, meaning little vine. It is named after the decorative vine leaves that are adorned during the 19th century books. I have here an example. Like the vines that adorn the books, a vignette is, in literature, adorns the story by enhancing a part of it. In other words, like the vines on the page, vignettes are little sections of a much bigger work. You can describe vignette as a pause in the story, where authors usually use vignettes when they want to highlight a defining, emotional moment in a character's life. Now, what is the importance of vignettes? Vignettes are important because of their descriptive nature. They can illuminate significant information, create depth of character, or provide insight about past events or circumstances. This helps create a more complete picture of the greater story. All stories rely on vignettes to provide detail. Without vignettes, stories would be little more than plot outlines. Now let's have an example. Let me show you. Let me read this one. The room was warm and stuffy, but in a comforting way. It had a heavy but pleasing odor of musty books and old upholstery, with an overall air of ash and cedar from the fire that was always burning low, the stone hearth crackling and spitting quietly. There was a patchwork blanket resting over the side of the sunken but cozy couch, its squares stuttered by the love and wear of time. A wooden clock ticked reliably on the wall. Now the vignette example, it uses words to paint a literary picture of a single room. On its own and out of context, this passage does not serve much of a purpose. It leaves questions like, where is the room? Who is seeing the room? Why are they there? Whose home is it? These questions about the larger story aren't answered with a description. This vignette's purpose is to add further insight about the room and to help the audience understand the setting Vignettes doesn't tell a complete story on its own, but rather it provides depth to the setting of some whole story. Notice how a vignette tries to describe a scene in this example. Now let's have another example. This is from a famous novel by Sandra Cisneros entitled The House on Mango Street. It is composed of 44 vignettes narrated by the protagonist, Esperanza. Now, each vignette tells her life story through isolated moments or brief descriptions of a character experience or situation. For instance, in Born Bad, Esperanza described her Aunt Lupe. I have here the passage. Her name was Guadalupe, and she was pretty like my mother, dark, good to look at, in her Joan Crawford dress and swimmer's legs, Aunt Lupe of the photographs. The vignette adds to readers' understanding of both Guadalupe and Esperanza. They can see Guadalupe clearly through the imagery. Additionally, the use of sentence fragments and the reference to actress Joan Crawford give greater insight into Esperanza as a person. Now, as what you can see in this example, vignette is used to give depth to the characteristic of her Aunt Lupe. So basically, vignette is used to describe a person in this example. Now, in conclusion, a vignette is a critical tool in both creative fiction and creative nonfiction because it adds depth and support to a piece of literature. It is a powerful descriptive device that can bring insight about a setting, character, or idea that adds to the overall understanding of the story. So, those are the things you have to know about vignette. I will attach another vignette on a Word document after this lesson, which is entitled Looking Through the Eyes of a Courageous Woman. Don't forget to check that out to know more about what a vignette truly looks like when it is used in literature. I hope you learned something from it today. This is your English teacher, Teacher Jai. Thank you and see you again.